How do you turn a YouTube channel into $1 million? Meet Ed Lawrence, aka Film Booth. In just 2 years, Ed has racked up over 300,000 subscribers with content about, well, creating the best content. Film Booth has become the go-to source for everyone from the biggest creators in the world to newcomers looking to make money online. Ed charges a premium for his consulting services.
You have to be able to hook and then re-hook.
But in this episode, we get his entire YouTube growth playbook, hooks, formats, editing tricks, and more for free.
When you have no choice other than to succeed, you put a lot more effort into succeeding.
If you're ready to start your 7-figure digital business, this episode's for you. Welcome to Money Talks.
Money Talks, let's keep it real.
Well, welcome to Money Talks. Today I'm with
Thanks.
Ed, aka Film Booth, the YouTube growth master. So I'm really excited. I have an amazing opportunity here because I'm literally creating a YouTube video with the YouTube master. So welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with, how did you become a YouTube expert?
Practice. I'd had quite a lot of experience just making videos in general for people because I had a sort of production company I was like a partner in, and we produced a lot of talking head videos, like really short, simple, snappy things for promo. So yeah, through producing thousands of these things, like thousands, and editing them and filming them and helping write them, those skills kind of transferred over to YouTube. Originally I got into it because I wanted backlinks to my website, and I realized no one would give us a backlink which would help our SEO when I reached out to them. So I was like, oh, maybe if I was a somebody, they'd be more interested in giving us links back to our website. And so I thought, oh, I know, I'll just grow a YouTube channel to 500,000 subscribers. Because I used to rank videos in search all the time. So I was like, oh, it's going to be easy. And then it just sort of consumed me from there, and I got too deep. And then, yeah, I sort of cracked it, and my channel started growing up, and then my channel started growing really fast, and then suddenly everyone's looking at me because I was doing things slightly differently. And then I've just been working with tons and tons of YouTubers ever since, helping them grow and kind of grow their businesses as well. So that was the sort of way in. It was a bit of a weird way in.
So you said you started making videos because you were trying to like get ranked for your previous business.
Yeah.
And like that was the inspiration.
So the previous business was a production company. It was kind of corporate video for SMEs in the UK. So we wanted to drive traffic to that to then try and get more leads. And that was the whole idea behind it.
Okay. So your first videos were about actual production quality and storytelling, and kind of similar to what you talk about now.
So the YouTube channel was about everything that we thought small businesses in the UK would need. It's like presenting, filming, editing, writing, like too much stuff, marketing, sales funnels, automation, using video. And that caused a bit of a problem because it was almost like there wasn't enough of the same topic bringing people back. Like people who are interested in presenting aren't necessarily interested in editing. So that caused a bit of a problem in that we'd make videos and no one would watch them, or they'd watch one way more and then nothing the next. So that was the strategy, to use YouTube to sort of grow the business. And it just sort of transformed from there.
And at what point did you realize like, oh, this is working so well that I'm just going to go all in on this, and this is going to be my thing?
So it worked awfully for 18 months. We picked up some business from it. And actually, to be fair, if we hadn't done it, we would have gone bust in COVID because we were in-person production. And the views that we were getting actually funneled people to us. So you don't actually need that many views to start making money on YouTube. The point I went all in, so I actually left my production company and I gave my half to my business partner. I just sort of said, I'm going to go on YouTube full time. I had about 40,000 subscribers maybe. I can't remember the exact number, but I wanted to be focusing 100% on that. I didn't want to be focusing on growing the other business and looking after clients and all of the other things that I was doing. Although I probably could have done both at the same time, I wanted to go all in on something. And my future didn't feel like it was the production company. It felt like it was YouTube. So that was October 2021. 2 years ago, I left my actual business, which is pretty cool because it's come on a lot since then.
That's awesome. So you touched on the money. You said you have many subscribers to actually be making money off YouTube. How much were you making at the time? And when you made that decision to go all in, you said 40,000 subscribers. Like, how much does that equate to around for thinking of people starting channels?
I mean, when we were doing 3 videos a week for search and playing this like quantity game, we probably netted like £50,000 from it, which isn't eye-watering, but at that time it was super helpful because our entire business kind of vanished and then got propped up by it. When I left the company, I wasn't really making much. I had some sort of like, I wasn't making enough to live off. I had ad revenue, which was like a couple of grand. I had some consulting things that rolled in. But yeah, I was kind of like, uh-oh, better do something fast. But I kind of knew, I had a plan, and I was like, I know this is going to work if I stick to my plan. So I just trusted that it would work out, and it did.
Yeah, I feel like often you don't need to be like making tons of money to jump in on something, but you need to just see that kind of like that light at the end of the tunnel where it's like, oh, if I just do this 10 times more, then I'm making a lot of money, or 100 times more. And once you like get the ball rolling, and so it's a good lesson. Like you just saw that working and you like doubled down on it.
Yeah, I think the thing to be careful of is like people can jump too soon. So at exactly the same time this was happening, Liv, who was my girlfriend at the time, had done the same thing. So she had an Instagram following of about 50,000, and she hated her job, and I was like, just quit. She was like, how can I? So I was like, we came up with a plan. And yeah, like 3 months later, she was making more money than she'd ever made in her life. Same thing, both took a leap at the same time, and both had a result that turned out really positive. But one of the things that probably doesn't suit people is when you have no choice other than to succeed, you put a lot more effort into succeeding. So we were up at 5:30 every morning, finishing work at 10:30 at night and going to sleep. You know, we did the whole kind of like monk mode thing for a year or two, or probably about a year. If you want to make the jump and you're thinking, no, this is to be great, I'll do a few hours in the evening, or you know, a couple of hours here or there, it ain't going to work. Like, you got to put the effort in to get the reward. So that's one thing that we both sort of jumped in on and spent a lot of time on growing our followings and trying to produce products and building a business around it.
Yeah, I've heard this kind of, it sounds simple, but it's sort of like if you take things like, if you treat things like a job, then they end up becoming a job. Like a lot of people just look at things like, oh, just like dabble. And, you know, but if you really treat things like this is my 9 to 5, this is my like main thing, I'm going to make this work. Like, and you really take it seriously, then you're already like ahead of like 95% of people, you know? So I think it's a good lesson.
I think you need some self-belief. So I had a lot of self-belief, and I had a lot of self-belief in Liv. She didn't think it was going to work. She was worried. And I was like, I know this is going to work. I know this is going to work. If you don't have that, it's a lot tougher. I've just always believed in myself, just because I figure if you work hard enough and keep consistent at something, it usually pays off, right?
Yeah, that's true. And so, I mean, now you've made an amazing career off YouTube. Can you share a little bit like what your breakdown of, let's say, revenue streams, like if we had a pie chart of like how you're kind of operating your business, making your money, like what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of shifting. I'm going through like a transitional phase to the leap, which is going to make the company bigger, well, turnover much bigger anyway. So currently right now, in the last 12 months, it's done about $1 million. And I think it's just gone over that, actually. I haven't got the exact numbers because I don't keep that track of it. But yeah, it went from, I have like a 10-week cohort, which is probably about 50%, maybe slightly less. Then I have another, and that's like, I take on a group of like 30 YouTube creators, and for 10 weeks, I help level them up in all different areas, from like strategy to editing to writing. And then I have another community, which is a paid one, which is slightly lower ticket. It's not low ticket, it's kind of in the middle. And that is literally just helping people with thumbnails. So it's a community with a course. Originally, it was a course with a community, but then I realized actually the value was in the community, not just the course, because giving feedback on people's images and thumbnails and titles is where the results are, not just watching a course and trying to do it on your own. So I positioned it that way, and that's probably another sort of 25, 30%. Then I've stopped doing consulting a few months ago, but I used to just have my diary open for drop-ins like a few hours a week. That was probably another 15%, and then there's the odd bit of sponsorships, hardly there. I think my ad revenue turnover is like between 1% and 3%, which is what most people go for. And then there's the odd like VIP client where I don't really offer it publicly. It's usually if someone applies to my cohort and I'm like, okay, this looks like someone I'd like to do a lot more closely with, I offer them a special package. But I only have room for 2 of them, and I don't necessarily have someone in it all the time. They kind of have to be the right fit. And that probably takes up like the next 5%, something like that.
That's awesome. Okay, so obviously this, you know, there's specific advice depending on what type of channel you're doing, what type of content. And I would say the interesting thing about content and YouTube right now is it feels niche, but I really don't see it as niche, because it's like no matter what business you're in, understanding attention and understanding content creation is so important. Obviously there's way more content creators than ever, podcasters, YouTubers, but even if you just own a business, you should really understand how to get people's attention, how to create content. And I think like some of your teachings apply everywhere. What would you say like the three biggest things right now that you think are the most important across YouTube?
So what you just said, really, how to get attention. You have to be able to hook and then rehook and then rehook and then rehook and continually keep hooking people. So the first hook is the title and the thumbnail. So you've got to get their attention above everyone else. And, when someone goes on the YouTube homepage, they're shown all of their favorite things. So me, as someone who teaches YouTube growth, I've got to be more interesting than cars, or tattoos, or golf, whatever it is they really flipping love. So you've got to be like, all right, well, how the heck do I get attention? And that's spot on what you just said. That's like the number one commodity and the number one thing to get good at. So once you've got their attention, you then need to hook them again with a literal hook in your intro. And then I teach people to continually try and rehook. So to open loops, to pose questions within the content that make the viewers go, oh yeah. So the second you pay something off, let's say they want to know 3 things when they click on a video, and you pay the third one off 5 minutes into a video, and it's a 10-minute video, that viewer's gone. So what you need to do is pose another question that plants a seed in their mind that makes them go, oh yeah, I never thought about that, or surprises them, or rehooks them so they want to keep watching. And the art of getting attention, like you said, it applies to everything in business. So once you get good at that, you get good at email headlines, you get good at opening lines in your email, you get good at tweets, you get good at writing short form content. So learning to hook is probably the number one writing skill. So that's where I put my next focus. After that, building credibility for educators. I work with educators mainly, like information-based channels, so I'm not working with entertainment ones. And it's tough because I work with people who are like, oh, I just sold my business for 10 million and I want to make a YouTube channel helping people, do what I did. And it's like, cool, no one's going to believe you. No, it doesn't matter that you've done it. That doesn't mean that, there's loads of people out there who are better at hooks. So why would anyone click on you? So the next art is like, okay, how on earth do I come across as credible so that when people click me, they go, this person's credible, I trust them, this is good information. They get to the end and then they go, all right, let's give this person another chance and watch another video, and then build and sort of nurture a relationship with the viewer so that they trust you so much, every video you make, they come back for. And the way you do that really is, there's a few ways. I like to turn to story. So story 1 would be the story about how you overcame the thing the viewer really has a problem with. Story 2 would be talking about how you help clients do the same thing. It doesn't need to feel like an advert. It needs to feel more like a legit story where you're like, you make your client the hero, and aren't they wonderful, aren't they amazing? I help them do it. You're just the guide in the journey. And then another type of story would be sort of talking about people that are highly clickable, like Elon Musk, or famous people that your viewers would really admire and click on. So you get out of the thumbnail and you put them in it, the thing that's clickable, and then you break down the amazing thing they did, and you show off your expertise there to build more of that credibility. So that's the number one thing you've got to build. Unfortunately, most people don't have enough of that to ever get traction on YouTube. So they have to sort of build that credibility on the go and their skill set to get to the level where you become like Alex Hormozy, who is just like raw credibility. And then I'd say the third thing, I'd say personality plays a big part in this. There's so many different personality types. If you know YouTube in the business space, because I imagine most of your viewers are going to be business minded, right? We've got Alex Hormozy, we've got Dan Coe, who's talking about business and mindset. They have like Iman Gadzi, who's a young guy, getting insane amounts of views. And you have all these different people, and Cody Sanchez as well, she's really good. But they're all quite strong personalities, but it's not necessarily the loudest. So Dan Coe is actually quite quiet. He's kind of dry. I mean that with a lot of respect, because I really like the guy. But there's no frills, it's just information and half an hour of him talking. But his videos do amazing well because that is what appeals to people. He's got credibility, and his viewers don't want crazy, explosions and stuff going on. And then Hormozy's got his personality where he has just sort of finessed his personal brand so nicely. He's got, his nose strip, which makes him more relatable. It's a flaw that he's sort of openly showing, which makes him more of an admirable character. He dresses up like a trucker. so he's relatable. He's not in a Ferrari. You never see him in a Ferrari or a suit. And he breaks down things in ways, and he talks with conviction, and he's a likable character. And then Lady Sanchez is kind of sassy, again, likable, very powerful woman. So they have their like personality traits, and they also have their flaws, and they're kind of not afraid to hide those flaws, and sometimes they feature them. So working out, how to get your personality out there and what that personality is, that can play a massive part. Because at the end of the day, most of the information we've got online is the same, but the delivery is the thing that sets it apart. So I think those are the three things I'd focus on.
That's great. Yeah. I think one big debate with content now, like internally for me, is like when you're, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you see what's working, and it's often like the kind of most out there takes where it seems like people are exaggerating, kind of like, twisting the truth, or like just saying something that they know is going to get a rise out of people. And I always have this kind of thing where it's like, you obviously want the views, you want to go viral. That's the point of making content, is to be seen, but you also want to be like authentic. And so many things, like, even a hot take that you might have obviously has, like, for example, something like I believe is like in the money sector, because this is Money Talks, is like, you shouldn't save money unless you have millions of dollars, so savings account. So, I've done content where it's like savings accounts are a fraud. And it's like, of course, there's so much context with that. And if I explain it, I think it would make sense to a lot of people. But obviously, like, if I went like, hey, I have some context around saving money, that's not going to work. But if I said savings accounts are frauds, then I'm going to get like all of these people in the comments being like, you don't know anything. What are you talking about? And it's like, what's that balance of like getting the views, but also like not just like milking, not just like saying crazy shit to say crazy shit.
Yes, I think what you just said there is a good hook. I think that's exactly the right thing to say. Because what you would have done is you would have stopped someone in their tracks, and two things are going to happen. First, some people just want to fight you, and we ignore them. They're usually pretty moronic. They just go around the internet looking to try and make themselves look good, right, by putting other people down. Then you've got the smart ones who will give you a healthy debate, but they're probably going to read the content that comes below it. So saying savings accounts are fraud, that's got their attention. That's the hook. It's then up to you to put a compelling answer together that makes people understand your point. And this is where the credibility can come in, and stories. Jump in straight away with a story about how you work this out, and then prove it. So people are always going to write negative stuff. What you generally find on social media platforms is when you get pushed to a wider audience and a new audience, you get more hate. So it's often a good thing. It means your content's been pushed further than your little bubble of people who love kissing your ass, right? So
the answer is you kind of have to be hated.
Sorry?
I said, so the answer is you kind of have to be hated in order to keep getting out there and getting 100%. More listeners and getting more views.
Like there's loads of people I watch. Again, like if we use Alex Hormozy, I'm like, I don't really know how anyone could hate him. There's tons of people that do. But it's usually a jealousy thing. So, he's up on stage and maybe they've got tons of credibility and they're like, oh, it's really basic what he's saying, sort of thing. And it's like, he's not trying to talk to people who have already made $20 million and impress them. He's trying to appeal to people who are, just getting started or at a different stage in their journey. So you are always going to get hated on. You just have to accept that. And what you need to realize is when you get a comment that is negative, what that person doesn't realize is you never made that content for them in the first place. So the best trick is just to go, okay, they're angry, they're annoyed, they haven't realized that this wasn't a video for them, and just move on. But yeah, and you can, then you've got Andrew Tate saying stuff just so he goes viral. But at the same time, it gets him traction to other stuff, which is maybe more sensible and has a better point. So I don't necessarily encourage people to just go and be controversial for the sake of it. I don't think that builds the right kind of audience for a lot of business owners. But I would say that you need to have an enemy, something you stand against. So say, for example, my enemy could be YouTubers should never get sponsorships. What a waste of time. Why are you making someone else rich? When someone sponsors you and they get some sign-ups, that's not a sign-up, that's a lifetime client. They're then going to market to them more. You should be doing that with your product, right? So you can create an enemy, and then that straight away is going to create some kind of controversy, but you can stand behind that. So you can use it as a weapon, but I don't think you should just be thinking, I'm just going to be controversial for the sake of it. It needs a point, and it needs to, help your values and mission stick out.
So my enemy can be the savers and the conservative money people.
Yeah, I mean, there was a video on Diary of a CEO, and the guy was saying how, you shouldn't basically. Why are you buying a house? Just rent. Everyone goes crazy. But you listen to his argument and you're like, he does raise a pretty good point. Like, I've never liked renting. But I was like, I can't really argue with this guy. It made me think differently. Loads of people were furious about it because they disagree. But then on the other side, there's people like me. I'm like, oh, I respect this guy now. And then there's other people who might have changed their mind and made an impact on their life. So yeah, if that is your enemy and the thing you don't believe in, I don't think it's you being controversial for the sake of it. It sounds like it's just, that's what you believe, and other people will. So build your tribe of people that believe.
Yeah, I think people love that buy versus rent debate. And the saving money thing, I think, is like, people assume when you say like, don't save money, that you mean like go spend it and buy like clothes and cars. But what I'm referring to is more like, if you want to become rich, you have to like take risks with the small money you have and invest in things that you might not see a specific return, because like the 5% in the market or like real estate, that's great to stay rich and preserve wealth and grow it slowly. But if you have like $10,000, you're not going to just invest $10,000 in this, you know, the S&P 500 and get rich from that. So that's kind of, you know, the point. And I think
it works.
I really believe it's a good lesson for many people.
There was an example years ago called Freddie Starr Ate My Hamster, which was a really famous headline in the UK about a comedian who put a hamster in his mouth. And the papers were like, front page news, he ate my hamster. And it was like record-breaking sales. People want to know what's going on. You know, that's clickbait at the end of the day. But another thing you could think about is, so I have different types of hooks. So we have the strong statement hook, which is what you just said, designed to make people stop and almost challenge them. Then you've got a fact hook. So you could be like, all right, give us a fact that you know about savings accounts. And, you know, did you know that the average person who saves X amount a month ends up 15 times poorer than someone who saves, you know, puts their money into the stock market? That in itself is a hook that kind of proves your point. And then you've got story hooks, which could be like, the moment I stopped using savings account was the moment my wealth 10x'd. That's a hook, and it's a story, but it's not necessarily as strong a statement. So you can use metaphors, there's all kinds, but strong statement hooks, facts hooks, and story hooks, you can get the same message out in a slightly different way. So what I usually do when I'm writing a hook, I'll write 3 or 4 or 5 versions that fit under those characters. I'll be like, let's start with a strong statement. Quickly write that down. Let's try and find a fact. Let's try and find a story. And then I'll pick which one I want to use for that particular post. I can save the others for later.
That's super valuable. The meta-ness of this conversation, because we're creating content while we're talking about how to create content, and you make content about other people's content. So it's like stacked on a million. I saw you did a recent, speaking of hooks, your most recent and most popular short on YouTube with over 1 million views is about how another famous YouTuber creates hooks. What did you see unique about that, and why do you think that video went so crazy for you?
That video went crazy for a couple of reasons. It's a short, so the idea of a short is we want retention. We want people to watch it twice, ideally, and we want engagement, but it was written so that it had a setup that intrigued people, and then finally paid off that point set up at the very end, the last thing, then it stops. So if you can write a hook that people really want to find out, you know, the payoff of, or if you can write a setup that something that, or open a loop where someone's like, oh, that's juicy, I've always wanted to know that, and then you unpack a story. So I used a really simple format for that. It was, I can't remember what the opening line is right now, but it was hook, setup, tell a story to make my point, then make the point end. And yeah, I used a very well-known YouTube creator who has a really strong community. So his face was the first thing that loaded. So visually, the visual hook is him, me saying something that intrigues them. I then tell a story which had absolutely nothing to do with him, which was actually about the London Underground. So I threw in a story that was kind of unusual, but interesting enough to keep them entertained. And then I made my point using the story and then just clarified it. I was going to do loads, but I decided to stop making short form. So I
really liked it. I watched it. I accidentally watched it like 3 times because it had that perfect loop. So I like kept watching, and then I'm like, is this still going? I don't know. It's still interesting. And I just kept watching. So
that wasn't intentional, the loop. People do that,
really?
right? So it's like, you don't know when it's finished. That wasn't intentional on that one.
That's funny. So, okay, to get even more meta. So I think this is a really interesting conversation. What would you say, but you know, it could also be seen as like growth stuff can be very dry, very interesting. You obviously make it super exciting. What should we make the thumbnail and title of this interview, YouTube video, podcast?
It's too late now. We should have decided it before we started. So because you need a hook, right? And sometimes you need a hook that's maybe a little bit sensational, and then you need to write an introduction that makes people realize that's not clickbait, right? So one interview I did, it was called The Man Who Makes YouTubers Rich for Free. So I came up with that before, and I was like, oh, this guy wants to work with YouTubers for free. That's a really interesting title. Then I interviewed him, and then I wrote an intro, because I wasn't quite sure what was going to come out of that interview. Usually I would do thumbnail, title, hook, setup, and then plan the content, or plan the end and then the content. So for something like this, it's a few hours of me thinking. But the best way to look into it is just to go and research. Okay, this is a topic. This is an interview about YouTube growth. Let's go and look at how other people have presented YouTube advice. So I'm trying to think of ones I've been on that have done well, but I can't remember the names of them off by heart. But then look for words and patterns that are associated with views. So the word hack in my niche often gets a lot of views. It's kind of intriguing. Algorithm, beat the algorithm. You only need one video. These are sayings that when people use them, they generally on average get more views than when they don't use them. So it's too tough to say in the middle of an interview, I would call this. I would have to listen to the whole thing now and then work out the hook and then write the intro based on that hook. And then I would probably do some voiceover to connect the intro to the interview, because it might feel a little unnatural and it might need some sort of segue to undo any clickbait. Sorry, that's not a particularly useful answer.
No, that's the style I've been doing. Like, do the interview, try and have a natural conversation with, some prompts. And then from that, I'll do a voiceover with like an animated intro that we put at the beginning. And that way it gives people, like, it's like meant to be this hook of like, you need to watch this whole thing because there's so much valuable info packed into this conversation. But I'll do it after so I can touch on the things that, we said in here. And then, so that's how I've been doing it. And then come up with a thumbnail to reflect that.
Interviews are interesting because if the viewers don't know who you're talking to, you've got to set up their credibility fast. So they know, okay, well, this is why I need to listen to this person and the value for me. And then you need to set up some intrigue as to the things that you're going to unpack to hook the viewer, to make them think, I want to stick around for that. So when I'm doing an interview, what I'll usually do is afterward, I'll go and listen to it, and then I'll write down, as I'm going along, all the questions, and I'll write down any of their interesting answers, and then I'll think, okay, these are the top 4 answers. I need to make sure, or the most intriguing, parts of the interview, I'll make sure that in the setup at the start, I tell the viewer, these are the bits that are going to come, because I think those are the bits they're most excited about. And then usually after those 3 things, where I've said in the intro, we're going to talk about this, this, and this, I'll say, but first I wanted to know this, and I'll drop in another but first hook, hopefully met with a question that I'm then asking live in the interview, which should be edited in order to keep them interested, because we need to make sure we're always delivering on what they care about. So, your audience is interested in money, maybe not so much YouTube to start, so I'd probably front load a setup that, we're going to talk about money and all the things they're interested in, and then find a way to relate YouTube growth to money, and then set up the points that were going to be made after that. It's a bit of a maze.
Yeah. So speaking of money, Mr. Beast says, like, if he started a brand new channel today, he would be able to get millions of views right away. And it's kind of all about, like, a lot of people think like along the lines of when they hear big creators, it's like, well, it's easy for you to say, or like, and I think it's really interesting that a guy like Mr. Beast, who's the biggest creator on the planet, says, if I started a fresh, brand new YouTube channel, I would be able to get millions of views right away and turn this into, a multi-million-dollar empire pretty fast. What would you do if you were starting a brand new channel?
The opposite of what he'd do. So he would go for big views, because that's what he knows. He knows virality. He knows how to make things interesting. I used to tell people that was the answer, but what I've seen is consistently people trying that and getting burnt out. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what do I want to be? Do I want to be a YouTuber? And to become a massive YouTuber now, you become a production company. But that doesn't mean you're going to make videos. You're going to become a CEO. You're going to become someone who hires and fires a lot. You're going to become a talent scout. And making videos is going to be one small part of it. But really, to get to that big views level, you need thumbnail designers, editors, people who are actually helping you produce the thing, strategy. So you become a CEO, and that's kind of the nature of that side. The other side is, so I deal with educators, is you don't go, I'm going to become the biggest in the niche. You say, I'm going to own a small corner of the niche, and I'm going to go all in on it, and I'm going to create an undeniable wall of proof that I am an expert on this topic, and then I'm going to build some products around it, which I'm going to sell. And if you do that, you're going to outlast almost anyone because you'll get money much faster. You don't need many views at all. Like I know guys, one of my clients got 800 views on a video the other day, and it generated $35,000 in sales from those 800 views.
Wow.
I think it went on to generate 100,000 in a couple of weeks because they were very, very niche. They managed to make a video that went deep, educated people, provided a lot of value, had some sort of call to action at the end, and then they went into their sales and marketing system. And what that means is you get 100 grand. There's an editor there to help you grow the channel, if that is your mission. Or you just take the money and chill out. But I think the thing you need to be thinking about if you're starting from scratch is what kind of creator do I want to be? Do I want to be a business person with a YouTube channel, or do I want to be a YouTuber? And if you want to be a YouTuber, you have to eventually become pretty much a business. So there's no escaping it. So I think that's the first thing you want to be thinking really is what kind of business do I want to be? But I personally would niche down. So I'm kind of niching down at the moment, where I was talking about views and just general YouTube growth, but I've just put my focus somewhere else for a bit, which is literally just helping YouTubers make their first product to sell it, because it's such a big problem that most of them won't ever make it past a certain point because they just don't have any monetization outside of ad revenue, and it's not that profitable or worth the time for most people. So that's what I would do if I'd start again. Look at what I can become the most credible person in the niche. And that can actually mean more views. So if I give you an example, there was this guy who made a video about a notebook and how he uses it. And he got like 2 million views really quick. Then he puts his next video out, which was general self-help advice. It's like 30,000 views, which after you've got 2 million is going to be a kick in the teeth. Next video, less. Next video, less. And I said, make another video about a notebook on Twitter. He was like, yeah, I'm going to. And he posted it, 150,000 views. And then he goes and makes another video, not about writing in notebooks or journaling, right? I was like, this guy should have just become the notebook guy. If he'd just gone big on that for like a year, every video about using notebooks, it might not have been the thing he was super passionate about, but what he would have built up is credibility. He would have also been able to build a massive product suite, which would have been full of his target audience, because your channel would have been full of his target audience because they're all super interested in like journaling and writing. And then he could have maybe said, I'll go bigger, I'll become a self-help channel. But actually, most people aren't qualified to be self-help channels, because there is no qualification as far as I know. So that's what I would be thinking is niche down and own a corner. It's a much nicer lifestyle, and it's very profitable, and it's fun.
I think that's really interesting because I would think that you would need to go to how can I go viral the fastest? How can I go crazy? And that's kind of the Mr. Beast approach. It's interesting that you're saying somebody with 800 views is generating a lot of money, and you can really make an amazing business and career off of not a massive audience at all. And I think that's a good reminder of 800 people. 800 views sounds so little because we're used to seeing Mr. Beast gets 200 million views and stuff. But speaking to 800 people in a room would actually be kind of crazy, And NFL game, which is the biggest sports thing in the country, in the US, you have 60,000 people there or whatever. And 60,000 views wouldn't be that much on YouTube relative, but it's 60,000 people is how many people are at an NFL game, which is a crazy stadium. So it's good reminders, these things that, if you think about all those people and if they're real views and someone in a niche that really care, it's a lot and you can really build off that. So I think that's cool.
So there's a danger on YouTube. Oh, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's funny because everybody's advice to other people is niche down kind of in everything, but everyone's ego gets in the way of themselves niching down because they're but I also want to do this, but I also am passionate about this. And it's so easy to tell other people. I mean, I've seen it in myself. You're but I'm still going to talk about this too, but I also want to be this guy. But it's so easy to tell other people, you're the notebook guy, just do that, but he's probably but I don't only like notebooks, so it's something.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you want to create stuff to express your interests. But what I would say is I don't think people realize how few views you need to make this a business. So I've got 2 examples for you. One's very extreme. Just started helping someone. This is not a paid thing because I wanted to just do a little experiment. Super, super niche channel, less than 1,000 subscribers. I just gave him some tips, some advice. I looked at their strategy and said, look, you're going in the wrong direction. This is where you need to go. I spoke to him the other day. He's like, I think I'll be full-time by next year. I gave him that advice in May. He had 800 subscribers. He's not even got 2,000 yet. He's getting bookings every week because he is in a niche where he's trying to own a certain space. And then there's another guy The issue I was just chatting to yesterday, he put a video out, no thumbnail, decent amount of views for his channel, like 3,000, I think. 10 leads, converted 5, high ticket offer. He was like, I don't think I actually need to bother with thumbnails if I can convert that much business from a few thousand views. I was like, no, you don't.
Wow.
Because he has that credibility and he has that experience, right? So that's one of the things about YouTube when I was saying like credibility is so important. If credibility, personality, an offer that is too good to say no to, these are your real powerful weapons. And you need one viewer to get one client if you can convince them you're credible and hook them.
Yeah. Can you give an example like of what, like you mentioned, he's in like he has high ticket offers, like what niche that is, or like what some digital products and what some things that you can offer to convert to making money?
Yeah, so he is, I don't actually know what his niche is. I guess it's just business advice. So he's helping e-commerce owners, I think, grow their businesses, which is a good space to be in because there's often a lot of people who are successful who want even more success, so they're willing to spend a lot of cash. But in terms of like digital, and that's the thing, right? This kind of what makes it tough, but also amazing at the same time. There's so many different ways that you can make money on YouTube. You can do affiliate. I know people doing $1 million a year from one product in affiliate, which is just insane. They don't have to work again. They'll just get that every year until all the people have stopped using that product. But, the con is they can turn off that affiliate deal if they want, or they can cut it, which happens. So you don't want to be too reliant on that. And then you've got sponsorships, which for me are high effort, low reward, not particularly long term, very annoying. Just not a big fan of them. They were right for the entertainment channels, but if you're an educator, I'd say focus on building a product. And then you've got low ticket items. So I think the first thing anyone who's trying to make money on YouTube should do is, when they get to like 3,000 views per video, that's not a correct number. It's just blanket, this is a sort of number I feel safe with. Make a very simple digital product that you then sell to that audience because it's going to do a couple of things. Firstly, probably going to give you a very positive surprise where you then believe in the power of YouTube, and most people will not believe that until they see it. They'll hear all these amazing stories, but they won't believe it will happen to them, and it can. The next thing is, as your channel grows, it will make sales. You don't even have to promote it anywhere. Like my first digital product, I just left links into the description. I've promoted it on launch, and it made £7,000 in the first few weeks, which I was really happy with back then. And then it made £50,000 over the year, and I didn't promote it again. I just left links below my videos. It's the only thing I had on offer. So most people could live off of that, and I was getting about 10,000 views per video at that stage. But then what happens is the channel grows, and suddenly, the sales can increase. So you have something waiting for people. And then you can learn from it, and you can say, right, I could do another simple digital product. What worked, what didn't, what don't I like about that? Or I could make a bigger one, or I could try something else and increase my product suite and go slightly bigger. So I went from a $35, £50 offer to like $145. And this was 3 or 4 months later, and I launched it, and I made £31,000 in a month. I thought, wow, that's good. I was like, wow, this was, I did not expect that. And then I was like, oh, hang on a sec, maybe I'm ready for something bigger. So then I developed my cohort, which was like £3,500. It's now $5,300. So I kind of look at it as like a ladder. It's like most people aren't just going to jump in and build a massive course or a big digital product if they have no experience, and they definitely shouldn't because it would just be a disaster. But you should be looking at what your competition do, what else is on offer there, and what you feel comfortable with creating, and pricing it at a rate that you kind of feel comfortable with too, or slightly more than you feel comfortable with, and then learning from there because, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people who can help. At the end of the day, you do have to learn on the job with this, and you have to accept that you're probably going to fail or things won't go as according to plan. But if I'm totally honest, most of the people I've worked with or helped or just given a bit of guidance to, it didn't go as well. This went 100 times better than I ever thought it would. So you can create these product ladders, and then you can cross-sell, upsell, and so on. But you then get to the danger point where there's too much and you lose focus. So for me, it was a game of let's try lots of stuff, consulting, digital products, workshops, courses, see how it goes, run them, test them, learn from them, and then let's build the big one. This is the game changer for everyone, and that's kind of the stage I'm at now. But
and all your digital products are all community and information based, right? That's kind of like, and so each one is kind of more in depth. Like when you say like the starting one was just like, I guess a little like a PDF with some info, and then the next one was like more one-on-one, and then the top one is like you really getting in the weeds with people.
So the first one was literally just like an animated download that said subscribe. And I started selling that from another channel that had like 1,000 subscribers. And that was bringing in money, actually. I managed to negotiate a deal with someone to put me in the back end of their software and give everyone a discount. And they had like hundreds of thousands of the right users. So that was cool. Yeah, my first one was basically a 90-minute live, which I recorded. I sold tickets to. That created some urgency, which got the $7,000 in. And then I sold it on demand for a year after. And that was Liv, who I spoke about earlier. That's exactly what we did with her business. And I did it for mine because I saw the success of hers, where she got from 0 to 5 figures a month. And we're talking like Liv had never even created an online product business before, nothing. So she was a complete novice, and she went from 0 to 5 figures in 3 months, really, and then way into the multiple hundreds of thousands. So I was like, oh, this is a cool product I believe in. I'm going to try it. And then what I did, when I got a lot of good reaction from that, and I was doing a lot of consulting, I noticed that everyone sucked at thumbnails, and this original workshop was about thumbnails. It's really simple. So I was like, I need to build a bigger product that helps solve this problem. So I then combined with what I'd learned from consulting and working one-on-one and the success of this really simple workshop, I then built a much bigger offer, which taught Photoshop and strategy and had a community with like loads of feedback in. And then the results from that have been amazing, but I only would have got there because I tried these other things, which allowed me to step up. So that's the system I've used. And I think for a lot of educators who have no experience in business in particular, it's a good way to go. If you've got a lot of experience, you can dive in and take on a big course or something. But I don't think most people do.
And do you keep, like, when you're a creator selling information products, how do you kind of differentiate between the content that you create for free on YouTube and like the content that you're now selling? Is it a conscious thing of like, I have to save these details for the paid stuff, or is it just like more tailored?
So Film Booth, which is my main channel, if you go too deep, what you tend to find happens is you lose the viewers, because you can't make a video, and this is called for beginners, right? You get all different levels of knowledge come in. So if you go too deep, the beginners are put off. They're like, this is a bit overwhelming, they leave. If you go too shallow, maybe puts off the experts. So what I did on Film Booth was I never went that deep. I just tried to do stuff that kind of appealed to a certain audience side. And then every now and then I would make a video that went much deeper, which would never get as many views because the beginners just wouldn't be able to understand it. So the paid stuff generally has all of the depth that I don't put into YouTube because I think it will stop the videos from performing, which is nuts, right? You'd think that the best depth would help, but it's the bigger views are probably the less knowledgeable people. And sometimes you kind of look at it and go, I'm just going to go deeper and more specific to take a hit. But I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I'm kind of rebuilding everything, and I'm probably just going to get everything out I have in the open, because I tweet, I write emails, I make videos. There's not a chance in hell someone will have seen everything I've ever put out, And also what I find funny is most of the people who sign up to my high ticket item don't watch my channel. They read my tweets and my email because they just don't have time to watch YouTube. They're business people, so they just want the quickest thing, and it's just their email and Twitter. So, they miss out on a ton of stuff. So I have purposely left a lot of stuff in my high ticket thing off of my channel. But when I remake it, I'm probably not. It'll be all over the internet in tiny little pieces. But that's not what you're paying for. You're paying for it all to put together. You're paying for feedback, and you're paying for simplicity and what I'm going to create, like a templated system that you buy into, where you just connect the dots and grow your channel. And to me, that'll be the real value.
I heard you say you compared content creation to not wanting to eat vegetables as a kid, and your mom would put the vegetables in the burger to make you eat the vegetables. And you compared that to content creation. You want to just elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So the whole idea is, it's like when you think about making a video, you're going to think to yourself, right, I want to talk about this. So you might say, I want to talk about why people shouldn't use savings accounts. So a title like why you shouldn't use a savings account might be really boring to people. So you work out, okay, what are they interested in? It's like, well, they are interested in making 10 grand a month passive. So that is the burger. Your information is the broccoli. You now need to make a video where they get the burger and some broccoli hidden in it. So you might come up with a title like the fastest way to make 10 grand a month passive income. It's a little bit more cryptic. And then you take them on a journey. You tell some stories, which is like, this is what I did, and then I found savings accounts just were ruining my money, so I did something else instead. And that's kind of the name of the game of YouTube. It's people click on what they want. They don't click on what they need. So you give them what they want and then deliver what they need. If you do that, the funniest thing about doing that is they go, I used to get so many comments, oh, Ed, I've never heard anyone talk about this before. Like, where'd you come up with this? And it used to make me laugh because it's like, well, there's about 1,000 videos about this online. You just wouldn't click on it because it was wrapped up as broccoli. So they then think you have given them this like crazy new information just because they never would have clicked on it before.
That's funny. I hear a lot of people talk about very, very tactical stuff on YouTube, like obviously thumbnails, titles, and like even details of like, you know, colors in the thumbnail. And like you mentioned specific words that work well. What I don't hear people talk about is like, so do you trust the algorithm? Like, does it always work? Like, have you ever created a video that you're like, this is perfect, this thumbnail is perfect, this title is perfect, and it's just not going? Or the opposite, where it's like you see a video that blows up and gets millions of views and you're like, that's not good. Like, so how much do you trust the algorithm?
So the algorithm just responds to people. That's kind of it. So if people enjoyed it and it gave YouTube enough data to say they're really satisfied with this, it'll just push it. So I trust it 100%. There are some flaws, but I think before I get onto them, I'll just go back. Have I ever made something I thought was going to do amazing and it did rubbish? Yeah, loads of times. That's like the most painful thing. But what always happens is 6 months later or a month later, you look back and you go, oh, I get why that didn't work now. And that's really important. So you've got to take these flops, or, you know, flop's not the right word, because just because a video doesn't get as many views, it's not a flop, because I give them different goals. It could be to build an email list, it could be to bring back the community, it could just be to go deeper on a point and build a, you know, give a ton of value to a smaller group of people. It doesn't make that a flop. It might just means it was never built for more views, which is a YouTube growth person. People might think it's a bit weird. But yeah, and then there's the opposite, where you're like, oh, maybe didn't think that was going to do as well, and then it takes off. But usually you'll look back at these in a few months and you'll understand. There are a few channels that I look at and I'm like, I have no idea, but they're just not for me. I can't get inside that viewer's head and understand what they like about it. So I think the algorithm does an amazing job of delivering content. I think everyone's very quick to blame it because they can't see the issue, but it's just a computer responding to clicks, watch time, and engagement. So you can't really get it wrong, I don't think. The problem I have is if, let's say I wrote a video once and I was like, I want this to appeal to the widest audience I possibly can in my niche. So I made this video about Mr. Who's the Boss and Marques Brownlee, and I wrote it. I was like, I want someone's gran, you know, an experienced YouTuber, a 10-year-old, a 50-year-old, to be able to watch this and enjoy it, never feel overwhelmed, get to the end, you know, hit like, share, whatever. And it did really well. I ended up getting like 1.6 million views. But then there's this little audience also watch box next to, in your analytics, you can see what your viewers are watching. And I was watching it and it was getting like 4,000 views an hour. And then it suddenly jumped up to like 6. And I was like, oh, right, it's been pushed even more. And then the comments came in, really weird. They weren't my audience. They were like fans of tech and Mr. Who's the Boss. And then for weeks, you know, my audience also watches suddenly all these tech channels. And then my next video was going to be about hiring a video editor. So when you've got 1 million people who have just watched a video and engaged with your content, you know, those are the people YouTube are most likely to start testing it with, potentially, if we simplify it down. So it's going to push my video about hiring an editor to people who are interested in tech. It's dead, you know? So that video, I remember looking at it being like, this doesn't make sense. Why am I getting no impressions? The click-through rate's awful. Like this, and it was a tried and tested title. And that one, I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I just fed this video to the widest audience possible who aren't actually interested in YouTube growth. And even if you are interested in YouTube growth, hiring a YouTube editor is even more niche part of that. So I was like, okay, lesson learned. But then the lesson learned is we'll give them more of what they want. And it's like, I don't want to become a general channel that just talks about things a general audience is interested in, because then you're just getting views. This isn't going to build a business. It's not that useful to the people who need the content the most. So I sort of took a step back from that. Now, some people, that is their strategy. It's like, get as many views as you can, go as wide as you can, grow your channel. But the most successful people I know don't do that. Not in the education space. None of them do that. The guys making the 8 figures, so, you know, for selling information, there's not this. And it encourages you to focus too much on being a YouTuber rather than being a business person and realizing that it's not about just making a number tick up on YouTube.
Yeah, I think the Money Talks channel is having that problem right now a little, because our biggest clip is a short about Chuck English describing his working relationship with Mac Miller. And it's like, one challenge I'm having with this podcast and this channel is like, the core thing is about money and the coolest ways to get rich. But when you talk about the coolest ways to get rich, you get all these kind of cool details about cool jobs. that aren't necessarily about money. And that is a reflection of like what I'm interested in. But I'm thinking like, so our biggest clip has like 250,000 views on a short, and it's just about Mac Miller and kind of like his kind of like how he works and whatever. And it's like, is that actually hurting the channel because it's bringing all these Mac Miller fans in who might not care about money or business or, you know, something about YouTube in this video? Or yeah, it's like, does that actually hurt you long term to have one video go off that's not necessarily what your channel's about?
If one video pops and it's bringing in the completely wrong audience long term, then yeah, that's not ideal, but it's also not ideal for the viewers. You know, they're going to get push content that they don't necessarily care about. So, but I would say if it's a short, I don't think that's too much of a problem, because the shorts aren't, well, right now anyway, it might change. People who watch shorts aren't getting shown your long form content, so that won't be
interesting.
They said that they're going to, and I don't know if they've started testing that. I look at them as two separate platforms, completely separate. I don't think anyone should be making shorts trying to grow a long form channel. I think they should be making shorts to grow a personal brand and get mass awareness. But you can't even put links in them anymore. So for educators, I just don't. Unless you want massive views, they're not particularly targeted. I stopped doing them. So, you know, I generally practice what I preach. So when people say, should I do them? I ask them what their goals is, and they're very, very, very rarely in line with their goals. So I say, don't bother wasting your time, focus on the long form. But for a podcast channel, they do work well in terms of getting views. So, you know, to me, I would just look at it like you're growing a TikTok. It's just on YouTube. You know, shorts is a different part, and you'll grow a following there. But I don't see many channels that get a lot of long form views who have got a lot of short subscribers and shorts views, but they'll get a ton in short. So the good thing about what you've got is you can actually link to a long form video. So if you can get a really juicy hook on a short clip, you can then point a link in the short to the full version, and you could maybe say, check out the full version here. But I don't think if it's a short, it's going to be causing much damage to audience. It will just be bringing in people who aren't necessarily going to push your brand, maybe.
Yeah.
What is your goal, I guess? That's probably the thing to think about.
I was going to say, I think a fun exercise right now would be to, if you don't mind pulling up the channel and we can like you can criticize me and destroy my ego of the podcast channel. So it's Money Talks with Jesse. And I think, it's interesting to break it down from such a personal level, because then we can really see like what we're doing here.
All right. So you got loads of short. What's short? The first question is always the same. What is your goal? Like, why do you want to do YouTube?
So I look at the podcast as the faucet of content, and my goal, I would say, I'm not trying to build like, it's definitely not the direct thing of like, let's do content and sell digital products. I think I'm trying to do this content to have interesting conversations, and the serendipity of having those conversations, the learnings, and then I just see the value in generally creating content on all platforms. And I thought this would be the most organic way for me to do it, was to have these conversations. And then this becomes a YouTube video, grow the YouTube. This becomes 10 shorts, put those on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and then like just have that compound. And then I just think great opportunities come from that and building audience and community. But I guess I got to figure out the specific goal,
If you can say your goal in a few lines, that's what you're on target. So the goal is the most important thing, because every decision you make, you should put up against that goal and say, will it help me hit it? And is this a 2x or is it a 10x task to make me hit it? So for example, if you wanted to sell products, I would say, is shorts going to help you hit that goal? Now they've taken away the link, or is it just going to help you grow a following and people might find you? That sounds like a 2x task, not a 10x task. Let's find the 10x, which would be producing long form, right? So I think people don't necessarily want to put a monetary to their channel and their goal, but it helps so much. Because if you say, right, I want to earn £5 million, you then start to think, how could I do that? And then you think, okay, who do I need to talk to hit that? And then you think, how am I going to get them to buy something, or how am I going to monetize it and keep them interested so that I can hit my goal? But if there's nothing there, I guess it's like this, right? If I blindfolded you and put you in a room with a dartboard and span you around and said, hit the bullseye, you'd spend your rest of your life doing it. You'd never get anywhere. If I gave you a dart and said, hit the bullseye, and you could see, it might take you 50 attempts, but you'd finally hit it and get somewhere. And without a solid goal, you're with your blindfold on, being spun around in a circle. You're just never going to achieve anything. So that's your first thing to think about.
I guess it's just like, I sort of looked at it as like, if my goal is just to like grow the audience and community, and then I just can't think that far ahead, I guess. I'm like, if I can grow it to like a sizable number. And then I might have new goals, which are like, oh, now we have this powerful thing that we can like do new things with. But for now, I guess starting off, I was just like, this is kind of brand new. Like, let me just dive in and start creating content. But
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that and playing around. But I had a goal. I had a 10-year goal from the day I started YouTube. Like,
wow.
and yeah, I always just followed that. And then it changed. That's the thing. I completely scrapped it. Came up with a new one. And then I hit it. And then I was like, oh crap, what do I do now? Right, new goal. So, but I always have to have something that I'm aiming towards. Otherwise, I can't really work out why I'm making any decisions. So you can play around with the format and you can learn YouTube and you can experiment, and that will probably help you find some sort of mission and purpose. But if you can try and come up with one to start, even if it means you go in the wrong direction for a bit, it's going to send you forwards. So that's what I would say. And then once you've got that, then I can look at your channel and say, right, you've got a video here called Why a Car Wash is the Best Investment. Why was that title going to help you hit your goal? And why is it going to appeal to the people that will help you hit the goal? Because you might say, all right, all of my viewers, I want to teach online business owners. All right, hang on a sec. Car wash content, that's not necessarily interesting. That's not something that's going to help me hit my goal. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have made that, by the way. So it gives you something to kind of like validate your ideas and your purpose of each video against.
Yeah, I sort of thought of it as the coolest ways to get rich is like ties everything together. But maybe that's too broad of where it's like just to inspire people who are stuck in 9-to-5s, working corporate jobs, trying to figure out how to make more money. And it's like every episode is just a new cool way to get rich, whether it's, you know, the one you see about Max Siegelman creating his brand that celebrities love, or a car wash, which nukes your tax bill, or, you know, Nick Huber, who's
What if you
got
said,
big on
I want to
Twitter.
help 1 million people start a business?
Okay. So more of like a specific, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think of that, then suddenly it's like, okay, you now have a thing. All right, I need to make sure that I include a question about starting a business in every video I make. So on my other channel, which is basically about the business side of YouTube, when I interview people, I usually ask them, the video will be about how they made $30 million. But the first question I might ask them is, can you tell us how to get from 0 to 100,000? Because 30 million is not relatable to most people. So I'm trying to tie it in with the goal of my channel, which is to get people to become full-time creators and then introduce them to all the cool stuff they've done afterwards, because I want to help people. And of course, I'm going to create products and communities around it to help me hit my goal.
And
so it's tough with the podcast because a lot of time people do it for, you know, personal brand building, which is great. But then also I have met a lot of them who get to a point where they're like, I don't know what to do about, you know, the business side of this now. So
Yeah.
you are a businessman. I reckon have a dig around and have a think, and then that's going to help you make better decisions.
And yeah, and then from a tactical point of view, let's say we look at, let's say the one about Max Siegelman. I think it's at the top of the channel. Just for example, just to go through it, like, what do you think of that title, thumbnail? Why is it bad? Why is it
Which
good?
title is it?
We get the actual title.
I don't know who he
So
is.
he created the hottest secret celebrity brand.
Is that the title? I can't see
And-
that anywhere. Oh yeah, top left. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, so the title's got way too much going on. Firstly, you've got number 18. I don't know what that means. If that's the 18th episode, then everyone who hasn't seen the first 17 probably going to not want to click on that. So just get that out of the title. Then you've got featuring
Interesting.
Max Siegelman of Siegelman. Do we need that? It's only useful if people know who he is. And unless millions and millions know who he is, it's probably not worth putting his name in. Also, then he created the hottest secret celebrity brand. There's no money in your thumbnail or title at all. And that's what, if you chunk it up to the thing your viewers are most interested in, it's making money for themselves. So the reason they want to hear the stories of these people isn't because they care about the person, it's because they care about what the stories will enable them to do and what they might learn. And they want to see someone who went for a transformation and what decisions they made to get them there. So he created the hottest secret celebrity band. I would probably make the title more intriguing and put more of a result in there. The man who made the man who generated $10 million doing something with celebrities. You know, you have to fill in the gap there. I don't know what the video is about. And then the thumbnail and title, everyone's favorite hat doesn't make sense. So cover up the title. The second someone sees that thumbnail, there's too much going on. There's loads of faces. There's Justin Bieber, and everyone's favorite hat could mean anything. So we need way more context. So I'd probably, if you go and look in your niche, they all have big numbers. I'd probably put the 10 million in there. I'd probably pick one or at max 3 of those celebs, the most recognizable, and then come up with some sort of intriguing text that complemented the title or created a curiosity gap. so that the viewer wanted to click. So yeah, there's a lot going on there that needs changing.
No, that's
Which
great.
is why I created this whole like community for thumbnails and titles, because they're so hard.
And they're so important, right? It's like that can mean the difference.
Yeah, you got to
between
get the
like,
click. You know, at the end of the day, YouTube wants watch time and engagement, but
Yeah.
the only way you can get that is by getting a click. And the more people who click,
Yeah.
the more interested they are, right? And then hopefully
Yeah.
the longer you keep them watching. So yeah, if I'm totally honest, for me is the biggest problem on YouTube, because there's years of information out there about how to keep people watching, and you know, and how to make videos, and how to make videos that look great, and how to present. There's very little information about thumbnails and titles. And if I'm honest, there's 2 or 3 people in the entire world that I refer to my clients to help with that, because most people just don't have the skill. It's really tough.
So let's say a title like this, another one, How Nick Huber Made 25 Million Trolling on Twitter. And then
Yeah, that's a better title, but I'd get rid of the 17, and I'd probably show some sort of troll. So a tweet that was like, you know, something shocking in it to get people's attention. I'd probably get him and you out of it, because I don't know if anyone recognizes his face. So I'd probably just have the tweet big with a 25 million price tag on it, maybe. But again, there's a whole process for this. Like, this is making stuff up on the spot, which I never usually would do, because you have to validate every thumbnail against stuff that's already worked on YouTube. Otherwise, you're just guessing. There's no point guessing, because all the clues are there.
Yeah.
So I'd go and find multiple examples, and I'd make multiple versions of the thumbnail and title to then pick a winner and then test. But 25 million from trolling is kind of interesting. I think I'd probably write a tweet on there that's big text and kind of like a little bit shocking, maybe. Like we said earlier, find one of his most out there.
Yeah.
It's just-
No, I'm not. No one's holding you to it. I love seeing how like your brain works with this. And even that was just so interesting how you just right away go to take the number out. Like, it's like, because from my perspective, it's like, you know, I'm thinking of it with, of course, my ego in it. And like, as the creator, I'm like, oh, this is number 18. I have to like put the number in. And you're just right away like, I don't know what that means. Take the number out, take the name out. And it's like, it's interesting to hear it from that analytical point of view. So that's super interesting.
Well, if you spend the next 3 years studying thumbnails and titles all day, every day, yeah, it's what happens. It's a necessary evil, but really, if you want to get good at YouTube, it's a game of just like if you can do half an hour research a day, which is a lot, just looking at thumbnails and titles on the homepage, and then when you see something that sticks out, because you're probably your avatar, but a few years down the line, right? That's generally why people educate. It's like they achieve something, and then they want to help people stop making the mistakes that they made and do what they did too. So think, you know, if you see something and you're like, oh, I want to click that, just notice that feeling that you get. It's like a feeling in your stomach when it's a really good hook, and be like, oh, let's save that. Let's take a screenshot and save it. Maybe I could use the words that are in that thumbnail in one of my thumbnails, or maybe I could do a slightly different version of the title. And you can build up this armory of like power words, as I call them, which, you know, make all the difference.
Who are a few creators that really inspire you or you think are really like the best at something? And what is that thing?
So again, I only really watch educators. I've never really
Okay.
gotten into entertainment YouTube too much. There was a few entertainment ones, but I'm more watching the educators. Do you know what? Probably the people who do YouTube the worst. So I'm pretty boring with what I watch as well. Like, I watch comedy, but on YouTube, I'm just an information thief. So like Sam Ovens, just the depth that he goes, there's no frills. It's kind of hard to watch because it's just like overwhelming information. But at the stage I'm at in my life, it's highly valuable information. Then I think Hayden Hillier Smith is probably one of the best educators in the world in terms of what he does with his videos. Even just the way I don't think people realize like the way he throws his voice around to suddenly make something sound more emotional. Like, he's really flipping good at that, and everything he does is excellent. Who else do I really like? Oh, there's a girl called Natalie Lynn who's very young. She's very cinematic, and I think she's one of the best in terms of just like making these little cinematic stories. They look fantastic. They kind of get you thinking about yourself. You reflect. Who else is there? Hamza, I just look at and think he's achieved amazing things, but he's slightly controversial. He just rants at a camera for 2 hours, but he's built one of the most insane core audiences I've ever seen. Same with Iman Gadzi. Pretty nuts what that guy's done. It's like 22, and he's generating insane views and insane profits. Who else really inspires me? Oh, there's a creator called Gorks Art. I think he's probably one of the best in the world. Like, I watch his videos and I can't fathom how he does it. Like, everything's so creative. Yeah, he's probably the best. And then Dan Mace is another one who's really creative as an educator, who's very good at making things interesting and telling stories. Those are the kind of the guys that I think you guys are the top of your game. We're
That's
all kind
awesome.
of very different. Yeah.
I got a lot to check out now. I want to just end off on, so attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. Obviously, the last few years, TikTok's blown up and then inspired Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. And like now it's like if you don't hook someone in the first 2 seconds, they're off your video. So like you're obviously committed to long form content and kind of the opposite approach. Like where do you think content is going in the next few years?
I think it's going to be the same, if I'm honest. So people are like, oh, attention spans are shorter. I'm just continually seeing longer videos do well on YouTube, like 3 hours. And the way I look at it as, I don't think we can just tar everyone with the same brush. Some people love long, lengthy deep dives. They don't even watch, they're just audio. They're just listening in, right? And they'll watch them every day. Some people love the fast-paced stuff and they just want to smash through loads of content that is just doesn't make them think at all. It's just like easy to consume. Some people want to be challenged. So I think the future is really thinking about the type of creator you want to be and then making that for an audience. Because if Dan Coe can teach the same message in half an hour and get the same amount of views as Hormozy can on a video that teaches the same message in 8, edited in a different way, it just goes to show there's so many different types of people out there. And I personally think we worry about it too much. The attention span thing, yeah, that's also true. But another question you have to ask yourself is, what are my avatars watching? Most of mine are not watching TikTok. They're not even watching YouTube. Most of them are reading or listening to podcasts, right? Deep dive. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just important to think about who your viewers are and then how to make content for them. And if that means, constantly hooking them, change, this has to be a massive spectacle, then make that. But it could just mean sitting there talking very, slow and steady and just pouring out insanely deep information like Human does and building a core audience that way. So that's where I would focus, not trying to please everyone.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I always wonder, like, in 5 years, are we going to be watching 3-second videos that just are on like 10x speed and it's just like,
I don't know why, but so I just deleted Instagram again, because I deleted it last time because I was just like, I'm on there for like an hour and I don't realize what the hell is going on. Like, I'm not sitting there going, I'm having an amazing time. It just holds your attention so well. And I don't know if short form will be around. I feel at some point people are going to be like, this is just dumb. You can spend 3 hours watching short form video and walk away completely unchanged. Different from long form.
It's such a fine line because on one hand, there's so many TikToks and stuff that I'm like, wow, this is insanely educational in 8 seconds. And like, you used to have to like read a whole book to get this. And then on the other hand, it's like you can watch 1,000 of them and be like, didn't learn anything, don't know what I've just watched. Like it just mushes your brain.
I've been taught stuff. I can't remember any of it.
Yeah, that's it.
That was interesting, and it's like gone out my head. But Twitter, you can read threads. There's long form on there is doing really well right now. So yeah, it's definitely down to the type of person. And I think the younger audience have definitely, they've grown up with shorts and longs to choose from. So maybe it appeals to them. But I'm not worrying about what's happening in 3 years right now, unless it's AI based.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to do part 2 in person when you're in LA next time.
Yeah, I'll be there next year at some point.
And we'll see. Maybe we'll be talking about 3-second videos next year.
Yeah, I'll be talking about why you need to make your all short form content.
But yeah, I mean, your knowledge and your point of view is very interesting and very helpful. So thanks for coming on.
No worries, man. Thanks a lot.
Cool.